Hi everybody, Dr. Joe here. I hope that you are making sense of this concept or model of personal change and transformation. I hope that you're continuing doing the last meditation over the last few days, and now I want to introduce this concept of the present moment. Now, many people talk about the present moment or the now, but I want to offer you a different understanding because there is an elegant moment, according to our research, when a person gets beyond themselves. They get beyond their personality or their identity that's connected to their personal reality or the life that they've been living every single day. And it's that process of getting beyond yourself that allows you to create from no longer the known or that personality, but from the unknown, from a new personality, from a different state of being. And when we've studied all these brain scans and we looked at a formula of understanding, we realized then that there is this moment where a person has the ability to dissociate from their body. In other words, they have no awareness or no attention on their body. They forget about the environment. And what is your environment made of? Think about the elements that make up everything in the environment. You have bodies, you have people, you have objects, you have things, there are places that you go to, there are animals, pets, plants, but let's just call those bodies or objects or things. And so then every one of those objects, those bodies, those things, those people, as we said in our previous episodes, has a neurological network in your brain, which means it's known to you. So then, as we've been saying, the change is to be greater than your body, to be greater than your environment, and to be greater than time. And that means then, if the familiar past that is based on memories and emotions that keep us connected to the past, and the predictable future, the anticipation of the same event in your future based on what you did in the past, is the known, then there's only one place where the unknown exists, and that is the sweet spot of the generous present moment. And I want to talk to you about a simple exercise that I'm going to ask you to practice, a new meditation to help you find the present moment. Because once we find the present moment, we can begin to execute a greater understanding of the formula, and we can build from that point. So here we go. Remember now, the way you think and the way you feel has dramatic effects on your life. And if you can't think greater than how you feel, or feelings have become the means of thinking, and those feelings are familiar feelings and emotions from the past, if you can't think greater than how you feel, then you are thinking in the past. And if you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, your past is going to be your future. So we said in previous episodes, most people wake up in the morning with a blank slate. They don't feel anything, they're not thinking anything, and because the brain is an artifact of everything you've learned and experienced, it's the memory bank of the known self, the autobiographical self. It's a reflection of everything known in your environment. Most people then, they start thinking in familiar ways, and their familiar thoughts are memories. And those memories have emotions associated with them, and of course, they start their day by remembering an event and feeling the emotions of it, mostly their problems. They're starting their day in a state of being that's the same every single day, and that becomes the unconscious habit. They're returning back to the same identity, the same state of thinking and feeling, the same state of being. And you ask the person, how are you doing today? And they'll say, I am unhappy. Whenever you say I am, you are commanding your mind and body into a destiny because you are combining your thoughts and feelings. The I am is your state of being. So most people will say, I am unhappy, I am frustrated, I am angry, I am negative, I am suffering. And that is their affirmation. That is the affirmation that they believe in every single day. So it makes sense then when they use a different affirmation like I am abundant or I am happy, that thought is never going to influence the body because the body isn't feeling happy. The body is feeling unhappy. And until we begin to change the body, will that thought ultimately make it into the body. So then we said then that's the familiar past. Most people do that. And then they wake up in the morning and they run through a series of habituations, a routine set of behaviors that they do every single day. In other words, they've lost their free will to a series of programs and their body is dragging them into the same future, the same known future based on what they did yesterday or in the past. And to me, that's karma. They're living the same lifetime every single day, but there's no unseen hand that's doing it to them. They're just 95% of the time unconscious. And I say that if you are not in the present moment, then for the most part, people are running a program and they're unconscious. Wow, now think about that. 95% of the time, people are unconscious to what they should be conscious of. So then here's the familiar past, that's the known. Here's the predictable future, that's the known. And the habituation of living in that predictable future in routine, on autopilot, means that in order for us to change, we have to execute a will, a free will, that's greater than the unconscious program where we lost our will. That means then we're going to have to take the brain and body from the memories and the emotions out of the familiar past into the present moment, and we're going to have to be greater than the body. It means then that we can't be thinking about the people in our lives or our cell phone or our boss or our coworkers or our kids in the meditative process. We can't be thinking about our pets, our pain, our finances, the news, emails, texts. Those are all knowns. And as long as we're thinking about the known, we're thinking the same. So then the stronger the emotions that we feel from some problem or some condition in our lives, the more we pay attention to those people or those problems. And where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So then the problem you have with your coworker, the problem you have with your body, the problem you have with your finances, the problem you have with your ex, the problem you have with your children, the stronger the emotion that you feel from that problem, the more you pay attention to the person or the cause. And if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, it makes sense then you are giving your power away. You're giving your vital life force, your permission to change to that person or to that problem. And so then every person, every circumstance, every place, everything, every object, remember I said has a neurological network in your brain. So then now the more you pay attention to that person or that problem, the more you give that person your energy because the emotion is binding you or giving your attention to that person or problem. It makes sense then that if you're sitting in a meditation and your body starts getting angry because it's normally used to getting angry at 8 o'clock in the morning because you're in traffic or watch the news, or you normally check your emails at 7:30 at work and you judge all the people you work with, and your body is used to those chemicals and you're not conscious that you're doing that, you just do that automatically. And now you're all of a sudden inhibiting those emotions to the body and no longer firing and wiring those thoughts in your brain. But your body's off schedule. It's used to being angry at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's used to being judgmental at 7:30 in the morning because you've done that every day. And it's off schedule. It makes sense then that the body's going to want to feel those emotions because it's used to it. So the body is going to start influencing your mind, and if you don't feel it from your outer environment, it's going to recall a memory so that you do feel that emotion. And this is where people say, I can't meditate, it's too hard. No, I want you to know when that comes up, you're actually doing your meditation right. This means then that you're in the process of change because now here it all comes and you have to see it in order for you to change it. So then, the stronger the emotion you feel for some problem or condition in your life, the more you pay attention to it, and where you place your attention is where you place your energy. you're giving a lot of your attention, a lot of your energy to different people and problems in your life. And all of a sudden now, it's the energy of the emotions we feel that causes us to put our attention on that person. We could say then we are beginning to create an electromagnetic bond with everything known in our life. Every person, every object, your cell phone, your home, where you sleep, where you go to work, your computer, your car, your boss, your coworkers, your cousins, your siblings, your parents, your kids. All of those elements has an emotion associated with them. So it makes sense then that as long as you keep your attention on all of those elements in your life, that you're taking all of your energy and you're directing it away from you. And there's no energy in your inner world of thoughts and feelings to think differently than everything known in your life. So if you're sitting in your meditation and you start feeling those emotions, and those emotions are coming up, I want you to understand that it's not time to get up and turn on your cell phone. It's not time to check your texts. It's not time to get on your computer and check your emails or turn on the TV or turn on the radio or call a friend. That's what people do when they don't think that they can change those emotional states. I want you to understand that when that emotion comes up, that you're doing something right. And I want you to understand that if you have the ability, and we'll talk about this, to learn how to lower the volume to that emotion, and you settle your body back down into the present moment. That's the moment you're telling the body it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind. And if you can lower the volume to that emotion, it makes sense you're going to take your attention off that person or that problem, and you're going to begin to weaken those energetic bonds. And if you keep practicing it and you keep working on lowering the volume to that emotion, there'll come a moment where you'll no longer think of that person or problem, and now you are breaking those energetic bonds and you are calling energy back to you. And we've measured this. You begin to build your own electromagnetic field. You take your power back, your permission to change, your very life force to create with, and build your own field. And now there's energy to heal. Now there's energy to create a new life. And the way that I describe this is, let's say you use your parents to reaffirm your emotional conditioning to guilt. You use your friends to reaffirm your addiction emotionally to suffering. You use your ex to reaffirm your conditioning to resentment. You need that person. You need that problem in your life to make you feel that emotion. You use your enemies to reaffirm your conditioning or attachment to hatred. Well then, when you sit in your meditation and you learn how to overcome those emotions, what I'm saying is how much of your creative energy is tied up in guilt? How much of your creative energy is tied up in suffering? How much of your creative energy is tied up in hatred or resentment that you could be using to design a new destiny? So then if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, and you wake up in the morning and you start thinking about your problems, and those are memories from the past, and those memories have an emotion attached to them, the moment you start remembering those problems and the emotions associated with them, you are siphoning energy out of the present moment into the past, because that's where your attention is. By the same means, when you wake up and in the routine of your unconscious thinking, you start thinking about all the people you have to see, all the places you have to go, all the things you have to do, all the meetings you have to get to, all the errands you have to run, all the people you have to see in your known familiar reality. You are siphoning energy out of the present moment into that predictable future. Now think about this. And as you siphon energy into that predictable future, and into the familiar past, the memories of the past are familiar thoughts, and the feelings of those memories are familiar feelings. The memories or the anticipation of the future events that are going to happen in your life are connected to everything known in your life. Same people, same place, same objects, same things. And every one of those, you can anticipate the feeling of every experience in your predictable future. Then it makes sense then that your energy, the way you think and the way you feel, thoughts being the electrical charge in the quantum field, feelings being the magnetic charge in the quantum field. That if you're thinking and feeling in the familiar past and the predictable future, and you're thinking in the same exact ways, your energy is exactly the same, and your energy is completely connected to this line of time called the autobiographical self. So then, the problem is when people sit down and do their meditation, and they sit down and they say, okay, now I'm going to do my meditation, but while they're doing their meditation, they're thinking about their coffee. When they're drinking their coffee, they're thinking about their shower. When they're in their shower, they're thinking about getting dressed. When they're getting dressed, they're thinking about what they're going to eat for breakfast. When they're eating breakfast, they're checking their emails and they're thinking about work. When they're on work, they're thinking about vacation. When they're on vacation, they're thinking about work. They're never in the present moment because the brain is an anticipation machine and it likes to know what's going to happen next. Now, if you can predict what's going to happen next, it's the known. Which means then that there's no room for the unknown in a person's life because there's so many knowns in anticipation of the next event that if the unknown actually happened, it would be an inconvenient moment for them. So then we learned in this process, the first step of the formula. What if a person sat down and I asked them as a process to close their eyes and ask them to work on the laboring for the sweet spot of the present moment. And if I gave them a simple thing to do, and I asked them when they close their eyes, with their eyes closed in the blackness, when they close their eyes, they see blackness. And if I asked them, I said to them, it's time to become nobody. What do I mean by that? I mean, take your attention off your body. And if you go from a somebody to a nobody, if you take all of your attention off your body and you're unaware of your body, then all of a sudden you're getting greater than your body. If I asked you to become aware of the present moment to such a degree that you weren't thinking about how long the music was going to go, what you need to do when the meditation ends, what meetings you have to get to, or get ready for bed, or whatever you start thinking about in the future, or thinking about what happened yesterday in the past. And if you caught yourself every time you noticed that your attention was going into the predictable future or the familiar past, and you became aware that you were doing that, and you relaxed back into the present moment, and you focused on nothing, on that blackness. Now, we're going to develop this over the next few episodes, but just go ahead and follow my instructions. And you weren't thinking about the people in your life, your cell phone, your computer, your car, your home. You weren't thinking about where you were sitting, where you work, your desk, where you live. You weren't thinking about anything. You were going from something to nothing, from someone to no one. You're not thinking about anybody in your life. You're not thinking about any place in your life. You go from somewhere to nowhere. And if you're not thinking about the predictable future and the familiar past, you would go from some time to no time. And it's the act of doing this that brings you into the sweet spot of the generous present moment. Now, if you're not thinking about any of those known things in your life, that means you're moving closer to the unknown. So the meditation, I will say to you, as a practice, and we'll build on this, it's time to become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time. Now, this is the process of getting beyond your body, your environment, and time, to labor for the sweet spot of the generous present moment. And I'm going to ask you to practice being in this blackness. And I'm going to take you on a little journey that when you close your eyes and you become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time, the moment you notice yourself returning back to the known, you think about people or objects or things or a place you need to be, simply become aware that your attention is on the known. Stop, return back to the present moment, relax your body, and I'm going to ask you to put your attention on that blackness. Now, I'll explain it as we go along, but this is practice. This is the laboring of the sweet spot of the generous present moment. That is where the unknown exists. So we'll practice this in your next meditation, And in the next episode, I'm going to build it up even more so you'll continue to do it and you'll assign more meaning to it. I hope you enjoy. Sit up. Eyes closed. Take a breath. And relax. Your body feel your body relaxing. More. Slow it down. And inhale all the way to the top. And hold it. And exhale. And relax. Into nothing. More. And inhale through your nose all the way. And hold it. And exhale. And relax. More. And inhale through your nose all the way. And hold it. And exhale. And relax. Your body feel your body relaxing. to blackness. And now, it's time to become nobody no one in nothing. In nowhere. In no time. To become pure consciousness. In a vacuum of space. As an awareness, aware that you're aware, in this infinite black space. Stay there. Pay more attention to it. Less attention to you. And invest all of your energy, your attention into the unknown. And the longer you linger in the unknown, the more you create possibilities your life. Tune in to the blackness and feel. And lose yourself. To nothing. Trust. In the unknown. And if you find your mind returning to familiar things and objects, to familiar people, places, in your known familiar reality, to your body, to your habits or your emotions, to thinking about the predictable future in time, or remembering the familiar past in time. Simply become aware that your attention is back to your known three-dimensional reality. Pause for a moment. Come back to the present moment. And unfold back into possibilities, the blackness. Stay present. And now, slowly bring your awareness back to your body, to your environment, and to this time. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the material world. In this space and time. Hi everybody, Dr. Joe here. I hope you enjoyed the practice of your second meditation, finding the sweet spot of the generous present moment. Now, I ended that episode by reminding you that as long as you keep your attention on everything known in your life, in other words, those emotions that are connected to certain memories, the anticipation of a predictable future, the different people, objects, things, places in your life, your pain, your emotions, it makes sense then that all of your attention is connected to your body, all of your attention is connected to all the known elements in your life, your environment, and your environment is made of bodies, people, objects, things, places. And your attention is on time. And where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And as long as you're thinking equal to everything known in your life, that which we said is 90% of the time in our first episode, then your life should stay the same 90% of the time. Now, some people like that, but if you're in the process of creating a new future, you're going to have to disconnect from everything known in your life. And when you do that, you move out of the predictable future and the familiar past into that sweet spot called the present moment. And this process of becoming nobody, no one, no thing, no where, and no time, is the moment you become pure consciousness. That is the elegant moment where we see fundamentally important changes that begin to take place in the brain. Now, I want to develop this model even further so you can give more meaning to what you're doing. So I want to start off by talking about how we create brain incoherence. In other words, if we have to create part of the formula of brain coherence, then let's talk about how we create brain incoherence so now we're aware of what we don't want to do. And the only way that we can talk about that is by talking about stress. Now, I've been saying for years, living in stress is living in survival. And stress is when your brain and body are knocked out of homeostasis. Stress is when your brain and body are knocked out of balance. The stress response is an innate mechanism, part of the autonomic nervous system, that works to return the body back to balance and order. So we have three types of stress: physical stress, trauma, accidents, injuries, falls. We have chemical stress. Chemical imbalance comes from viruses, bacteria, toxins, food allergies, hangovers. And we have emotional stress. That can be anything from family tragedies to second mortgages to single parenting to financial crisis. All of those things knock the brain and body out of balance. And all organisms can tolerate short-term stress. And when we perceive a threat or a danger in our outer world, there's an arousal that takes place. And the arousal is the mobilization of enormous amounts of energy to protect us from some danger in our outer world. So when we perceive that threat, we turn on part of the autonomic nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system or the fight or flight nervous system. And its job is to preserve the body from some danger in the environment. And in order to do that, it's got to mobilize and take all of the body's resources in that emergency state and mobilize it and make energy to prepare itself for that danger. And when we draw all this energy to begin to prepare ourselves for that danger or threat, the body moves out of balance. Pupils dilate, salivary juices shut off, respiratory rate increases, heart rate increases, glucose is mobilized, enormous amounts of blood flow is sent to the extremities, away from the internal organs for metabolism, because we're ready to do one of three things: to run as fast as we can, to stay and fight, or to freeze and hide. All organisms can tolerate short-term stress. If a zebra gets chased by a lion and she outruns the lion and the event is over, the zebra will return back to homeostasis and balance within a short period of time and go back to grazing, and the event is over. Now, if you're being chased by Tyrannosaurus Rex, just say, and Tyrannosaurus Rex is catching up to you, you would have to agree with me then, you would tap all of your body's resources to outrun Tyrannosaurus Rex. In other words, you wouldn't go 20% in, or you wouldn't go 40% or 60%, and you would go all in. And if Tyrannosaurus Rex chased you into a cave, and you could smell his breath breathing in the cave, you would also have to agree with me then, you would keep that stress response going. You would keep it going, because if you fell asleep, you could be prey. But what if it's not Tyrannosaurus Rex that's outside the cave? What if it's your coworker sitting right next to you in the next desk? That means that what was once very adaptive becomes very maladaptive. Because when you turn on the stress response and you can't turn it off, now you're headed for disease, because no organism can live in emergency mode for an extended period of time. Why? Because if you're mobilizing all the body's resources for some threat in your outer world, then there's no energy in your inner world for growth and repair. There's no energy for long-term building projects. There's no energy to heal. Now, the problem is that people all of a sudden become like junkies. The arousal of the stress hormones, the release of all that energy, people become highly dependent on that rush of adrenaline. And they need the problems and the conditions in their life to reaffirm their dependence on that chemical. They need the bad job. They need the poor relationship. They need to remember the past, because it makes them feel something. So here's the challenge. Because the emotions of anger and aggression and hatred and frustration and impatience and resentment and competition and envy and jealousy and fear and anxiety and worry, of pain, suffering, guilt, shame, hopelessness, powerlessness, those are all the emotions that are derived from the hormones of stress, and psychology calls those normal human states of consciousness. Those are altered states of consciousness. And it turns out that some people spend 70% of their lives living by these hormones of stress. They're living in survival all the time. Now, when you're living in survival, the arousal of those chemicals causes you to put all of your attention on your body, because you're being chased by T-Rex. You better be thinking about your body. So the arousal of those stress hormones heightens your awareness, and you put your attention on your body because your body has to be saved. If you're being chased by T-Rex, you're going to be looking in your environment where you need to go. And so you put all of your attention on your environment. If you're being chased by T-Rex, where are you going to go in your environment? And if he's breathing down your neck, you're going to be thinking about how much time you have to get somewhere. The body, the environment, and time. Now, where you place your attention is where you place your energy, as I've been saying all along. And living in survival means then you start to believe that you're your body. You start to keep all of your attention on all of those elements in your outer environment, and we become preoccupied with time. And now all of our attention is trapped into this three-dimensional reality, and now we have to play by the rules of Newtonian physics. That means that anything we create, because all of our attention is trapped in three-dimensional reality, is going to take time for them to appear in your life. So when we draw from this invisible field of electromagnetism, when we draw from this invisible field of life force that's surrounding our body during the stress response and we turn it into chemistry, the field around our body shrinks. Now, for the short term, that's fine, because if you rest and repair, body returns back to balance and the field expands. But what if you keep doing this on a daily basis, keep reacting to the same coworker, keep reacting to your boss, keep reacting to traffic, keep reacting to the news, keep thinking about the past, or keep anticipating the worst case scenario in your future? If you keep doing this and keeping the stress response going for an extended period of time, and you keep drawing from this field surrounding your body and turning it into chemistry, and your field around your body shrinks, you're going to feel more like matter and less like energy, more like particle and less like wave. And in fact, the hormones and stress heighten the senses and causes us to become materialists. In other words, when we're under the stress response, and the arousal that alters us causes us to narrow our focus on the cause, and we focus on objects and things. That's where the danger is. And now, this is where the challenge happens, because when people get hooked into the dependency of the rush of these chemicals for the arousal, and they need the problems and conditions in their life to reaffirm their conditioning to that emotion, that means now they're becoming addicted to the very life they don't even like. And human beings can turn on the stress response just by thought alone. They can think about their problems and produce the same chemistry as if the event was actually occurring. Now, they're becoming addicted to their own thoughts. And if they're using the same people and the same conditions in their life, they're becoming addicted or dependent on the same. That means nothing new could happen in their life. In fact, they're running from the unknown. They're craving the familiar. And if it's a scientific fact that the hormones of stress downregulate genes and create disease, wow, it makes sense then that we can turn on the stress response just by thought alone. Our thoughts can literally make us sick. So is it possible then that our thoughts can make us well? And we've done research to prove that you can strengthen your immune system in 4 days just by trading those limited emotions of survival for elevated emotions like gratitude, appreciation, joy, freedom, love. It's those elevated emotions then that strengthen the body and the immune system back into balance and health. So then, when we're under the gun of those fight or flight chemicals, and stress is created by not being able to predict something known, the perception that something is getting worse, or the loss of control. Now, that's what begins to trigger the stress response. So then when we feel a loss of control, when we feel like we can't predict the next moment, when we have the perception that something's getting worse, then we do the exact opposite. We try to control and predict everything in our life and change it. Now remember, every person, every object, everything, every body, every place has a neurological network in your brain, and because we've experienced them, it has an emotion associated with it. So then the moment we start losing control and we want to get control back, the arousal of the stress hormones begins to activate the brain and body to become super alert. And now we shift our attention from our boss to our spouse, to our coworkers, to running errands, to going to this place, to our cell phone, to our emails, to all of our problems. And like a lightning storm in the clouds, we start firing these different circuits in our brain. And they start firing out of order. And if you were to measure the brain when we do this, the brain starts functioning very incoherently. And when the brain is incoherent, we're incoherent. And when the brain isn't working right, we're not working right. Now imagine that people do this on a daily basis, and over time, the brain begins to compartmentalize. It becomes like a house divided against itself, and the brain stays switched on into these super aroused states. And now the person is, all of their attention is on their environment, waiting for the next danger to occur. And out of the infinite potentials in the quantum field that exist, when we're living in survival, when we're living in stress, we will select the worst case scenario in our mind, and we will prepare for the worst. And we'll think about that future and begin to emotionally embrace that outcome in fear. in worry, in anxiety, in hostility. And it's the act of combining that vision of the future with the emotion of survival that's conditioning the body to begin to become the mind of that emotion. Now we're beginning to subconsciously become fearful, subconsciously become hostile. And so now that means to me that as a person selects the worst case scenario and prepare for the worst, there's better chances of survival if we prepare for the worst, because if anything less happens, more than likely we're prepared for it. So people spend the majority of their life living this way. And the brain gets stuck into a high gear, and it stays stuck in these aroused patterns. And it's always looking out of the landscape of the environment to see what could possibly be a danger and prepare for it. Now, people spend the majority of their lives living this way, and we've done enough brain scans to see that when a person gets stuck in this state, and the brain is stuck in that highly aroused state, that as they shift their attention from one person to one object, to a place, to another object, to a thing, and they start firing these circuits, and the brain starts functioning in that aroused state and very incoherently, that if they're analyzing or thinking about the problems in their life while they're in that aroused state, they tend to make their brain worse. So if the hormones of stress then cause us to become materialists, and our senses become heightened, and the arousal of those stress hormones causes us to narrow our focus on the cause, and we draw from this invisible field of energy surrounding our body, turning it into chemistry, and the field around our body shrinks, and we feel more like matter and less like energy, and we're narrow our focus on everything material, then all of a sudden we start to experience separation from everyone and everything. In other words, we're fooled into the illusion by our senses of separation. Now, the quantum model of reality says that we are connected to everything that exists beyond the material world. So then if we're living by the hormones of stress and we're experiencing separation, and there's me here and there's you there, then all of a sudden now, if I want to get things to occur in my life and I'm matter trying to influence matter because I believe I'm my body, all of my attention's on my body, all of my attention is on all the elements in my environment, and my attention is on time, and where I place my attention is where I place my energy, then all of my attention and energy is trapped in this three-dimensional reality, then I got to play by the rules of Newtonian physics, which means that everything is going to take time as long as I believe I'm separate from everyone and everything. So here I am now, Joe Dispenza, one point of consciousness, one point of awareness, and let's say I wanted to walk to my car. Another point of consciousness, another point of awareness. If I'm matter executing or trying to change matter, it makes sense then as I move from one point to another point, one point of awareness to another point of awareness, my car, I have to move my body through space. And as I move my body through space, I experience time. So then everything that I create in this three-dimensional reality, I'm going to try to predict, I'm going to try to estimate, I'm going to try to forecast. It's going to be everything that I know to get what I want, and it's just going to take a certain amount of time. As an example, if I want to buy a house and I love the home and I don't have the money to pay for it, it makes sense that I'm going to have to work to pay for it. I'm going to have to drag my body to work every single day to pay for that house, and I'm going to estimate how long it's going to take over 30 years to pay the house off. And I may have to work extra hours or do extra things to make additional money. That's matter trying to influence matter. And so then when we are trying to produce outcomes in our life and we're aroused by the hormones of stress and we're matter trying to change matter, we always try to force outcomes, control outcomes, predict outcomes, fight for outcomes, manipulate outcomes, compete for outcomes, because we can only do a certain amount of things when we are trapped by the rules of three-dimensional reality of matter trying to change matter. By the same means, because we experience separation, there's me here, Joe Dispenza, and then I start thinking about my dreams. And most people place their dreams way out in their future. One point of awareness, present moment, the other point of awareness in some future time, way out there. And so then we have to drag our body through space, and it takes us time to arrive at that estimate, at that future. And so then people work really hard to get what they want when they're matter trying to change matter. So that kind of convergent focus on everything material caused me to start thinking, is there another way to do this? And so then maybe we thought, if we taught a person how to go from a narrow focus to a broad focus, in other words, instead of focusing on the material world, everything material and objects and things and people and bodies and places, what if instead of narrowing their focus in a convergent object way, what if we taught them how to broaden their focus and open their focus? And the act of broadening their focus and opening their focus caused the brain to begin to change dramatically. It caused the brain all of a sudden to function a lot differently. And that divergent focus, by taking their attention off of everything material in their lives, opening their focus in this direction, started the brain to change into more coherent states. So in the next episode, I want to delve deeply into the understanding of brain coherence and give you your next exercise to influence how you're going to create from the field instead of from matter. I hope you enjoy it. Sit up. Eyes closed. Take a breath. And relax. Your body feel your body relaxing. More. Slow it down. And inhale all the way to the top. And hold it. And exhale. And relax. Into nothing. More. And inhale through your nose all the way. And hold it. And exhale. And relax. More. And inhale through your nose. all the way. And hold it. And exhale. And relax your body. Feel your body. Relaxing. Into blackness. And now it's time to become nobody. No one. In nothing. In nowhere. In no time. To become pure consciousness. In a vacuum of space. As an awareness. Aware that you're aware. In this infinite black space. Stay there. Pay more attention to it. less attention to you. And invest all of your energy, your attention into the unknown. And the longer you linger in the unknown, the more you create possibilities in your life. Tune in to the blackness and feel. And lose yourself. To nothing. Trust. In the unknown. And if you find your mind returning to familiar things and objects, to familiar people, places in your known familiar reality, to your body, to your habits or your emotions, to thinking about the predictable future in time, or remembering the familiar past in time. Simply become aware that your attention is back to your known three-dimensional reality. Pause for a moment. Come back to the present moment. And unfold back into possibilities, the blackness. Stay present. And now, slowly bring your awareness back to your body, to your environment, and to this time. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the material world. In this space and time. Hi everybody, Dr. Joe here. Thank you for coming back. I want to just review a couple things to fill in some of the gaps for you. I know that in that last episode I gave you a lot of content, so I want to frame it in a way that fits into your practice of the meditation that you've been doing. So then I said that the hormones of stress cause us to narrow our focus on the material world because the arousal of those chemicals causes us to pay attention to what's causing it. And we become very object focused, very materialistic, because the hormones of stress heighten our senses. And it causes us now to become more aware of our body, more aware of the environment, and more aware of time. And so when you've been doing your meditation and I've asked you to take your attention off your body and go from somebody to a nobody, to take your attention off the people in your life that you identify with and to go from a someone to a no one, to no longer think about the objects or things in your life, from your cell phone, your computer, your car, to all the elements that you are associating with that are known. You're going to go from something to nothing. If you're not thinking about where you're sitting, where you live, where you work, where you need to be, you're going to go from somewhere to nowhere. And if you're not thinking about the predictable future or the familiar past, you're going to go from some time to no time. The act of you practicing that and taking your attention off of everything known, we could say that you are disinvesting all of your attention and energy out of this three-dimensional reality, out of the known, and putting it on the unknown. And so you've been practicing becoming pure consciousness. And it is the act of opening your awareness. When I asked you to open your awareness into the blackness, there's a reason for that. Because when you go from a narrow focus to a broad focus or an open focus, and you take your attention off the material world and put it on nothing, when you are no longer focusing on the known and broadening your focus and putting it on the unknown, you're putting your attention on nothing. In fact, you are tuning in to energy and frequency. Now, we learned that when people did this properly, when they broadened their focus and they were sensing space, the act of sensing space caused them to stop thinking and stop analyzing. Now, when they stopped thinking and analyzing, they stopped activating those circuits in their brain that was causing their brain to fire incoherently. And when they did this properly, when they were sensing instead of thinking and analyzing, they began to change their brain. Now, let's talk about how they did this. I want to talk to you about a simple understanding of brain waves. When you're living by the hormones of stress, and I said you're in that aroused state, your brain moves into a brainwave pattern called high beta brainwaves. Now, high beta is that alarm state, is that emergency state, that's the aroused state. But normal beta brainwave patterns is like most of you right now. You're listening to me right now. There's no danger, there's no threat, and your brain's job is to create meaning or order between what's going on in the outer world and what's going on in your inner world. And so your brain has a lot to keep track of. Your senses plug you into the three-dimensional reality. Think about it. If you couldn't see, if you couldn't hear, you couldn't smell, you couldn't taste, you couldn't feel, you would have no experience of the three-dimensional reality. So your senses plug you into the three-dimensional reality. By the same means, when you're under the hormones of stress and there's an arousal, the senses are heightened. And when that occurs now you got to pay more attention, you're more vigilant. So in that kind of state where you're processing information, everything you're seeing right now, everything you're listening to and hearing, what you're feeling, what you're smelling, your brain's got a lot to keep track of. And as it processes all this information, and you're relaxed in your environment and you're awake, your brain functions in what's called beta brainwave patterns. If I said to you, there's a test that you have to take at the end of this course, your brain would perk up a little bit more and you would move into what's called mid-range beta. In high-range beta, it's 3 times as high as low-range beta, and that's the emergency state. And in that high beta state, that's when you're shifting your attention from one person to one problem, to one object, to one place, to one thing, to another meeting, to another problem, to your past, to your future. And you activate these circuits and the brain fires in coherently in a high beta state. And people get stuck in that state. It's like driving your sports car in first gear on the freeway. When you broaden your focus and you begin to sense nothing but space, the act of sensing and feeling space causes you to stop analyzing and thinking. And we saw the brain waves start to slow down from that high beta brain wave to a mid-range beta to a low-level beta, and all of a sudden they started to move into what's called alpha brainwave patterns. Now in alpha brainwave patterns, you tend to be less preoccupied with your outer environment. Think of beta with your attention on your outer world. In alpha, all of a sudden you start paying attention to your inner world. This is the realm of imagination. Think of alpha as a creative state. And when you're in beta, you hear a voice in your head talking to you. That voice in your head is called the default mode network. That's the voice, the chatter that's always talking to you. When you move into alpha, your inner world starts becoming more real than your outer world, and the brain tends to see in pictures and images. You're more creative, you're more imaginative. Now in alpha, it's a slower brainwave state because you're all of a sudden forgetting about your environment. You can hear it, but you're paying attention less to it. If there's music filling the space, or you have earplugs in, as I said earlier in earlier episodes, it's less information coming in, your brain waves will slow down even more. If you're not eating, if you're not tasting, if you're not smelling, if you're not up and moving around and experiencing and feeling, and your body is still in one place, it makes sense then all of a sudden now there's less sensory information coming into your brain waves will slow down because they're processing less information. And as you sense space and your brain waves move into alpha, we notice something really important. The act of sensing space and opening your awareness not only changed our brains into alpha, but all of a sudden we started seeing those different compartments of the brain that were once subdivided because of the arousal of the stress hormones and your quick attention shifting. All of a sudden those different compartments began to unify. Different communities that were subdivided, different networks began to synchronize and form larger communities and larger networks. And think about this. What syncs in the brain starts to link in the brain. In other words, the brain started functioning in a more holistic state. And now the brain moved into alpha brainwave patterns, but not just any type of alpha brainwave patterns, very coherent and orderly alpha brainwave patterns. And we saw the front of the brain talking to the back of the brain. The right side of the brain started talking to the left side of the brain, and the brain started resonating into a more holistic state. And when the brain starts firing in that orderliness, you start feeling more like yourself than you have in a very long time. We could say now, your brain is getting more orderly. And as you sense nothing but space, people think that they're sensing nothing. But I want you to think about this. The quantum field is an invisible field of energy, of frequency, of information that connects and unifies everything physical or material. And its signature is order. It is wholeness. It is oneness. And as people don't know this, as they're sensing nothing but space, they begin to entrain their autonomic nervous system to start to unify with that unified field. And all of a sudden, the nervous system starts functioning more orderly. And then all of a sudden, we started seeing certain people feeling so relaxed, feeling so safe, feeling so connected that their body felt safe enough to relax even more, and the body starts to fall asleep into a light sleep, and the person is awake, and that's called theta. And in theta now, a very slow brainwave pattern, if the body is asleep and the mind is awake, and we've conditioned the body to be the mind habitually and emotionally, that's the moment the body's no longer the mind. And the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is wide open to information. And this is when we can rewrite a program. This is when we can lay down a new track. This is when we could begin to rehearse a new program so that we begin to subconsciously change our unwanted habits and behaviors. And we have great measurements of people in that theta state where they are reprogramming their nervous system and reprogramming their brain and body into a new future. So in theta then, when the body is asleep and the mind is awake and we're suggestible to information, suggestibility is your ability to accept, believe, and surrender without any analysis to what you're giving it, what's being inputted into the nervous system. So then the whole purpose of meditation then, number 3, the third definition, is to get beyond the analytical mind. And what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. And when people learn how to regulate their brain waves and slow them down, now they're entering the operating system where they can rewrite a program, where they can lay down a new track, when they can begin to rehearse and install new circuitry and write down a new program. So that's the purpose of meditation. And so the act of broadening your focus, going from a narrow focus to a broadened focus, going from a convergent focus to a divergent focus, the act of sensing nothing but space, broadening your awareness, starts to create brain coherence. And when the brain starts functioning in a more orderly and coherent way, and it begins to synchronize and those different compartments of the brain start working together, there comes a moment where the two hemispheres of the brain start to synchronize into balance. And the union of polarity, the union of opposites, the union of duality is called wholeness. And now we are creating from wholeness instead of from lack or separation. And this is where it gets exciting, because when a person does this properly, and they can practice it, our research shows that people can change their brain waves in 1 second, in 4 seconds, in 5 seconds, in 12 seconds, in 13 seconds, in 19 seconds. Why? Because they understand the process of getting beyond themselves. So why is that important for you? Because up until this point, whether you know it or not, you have begun the process of practicing brain coherence, the first part of the formula. And so when you open up your awareness in your next meditation, I'm going to ask you, as if you had no eyes, no ears, no body to feel, to smell, to taste, as if you were just an awareness, I'm going to ask you to sense this blackness, and I'm going to ask you to sense its depth. I'm going to say, how far can your awareness go into endless space? And all I want you to do is sense its infinite depth. I'm going to ask you to become aware that there's infinite blackness on both sides of you. And all I want you to do is broaden your focus and to sense it, to feel it, to stay connected to it. And the act of opening your awareness and sensing space slows your brain waves down. I'm going to ask you to become aware that there's infinite space behind you. And the act of sensing that infinite space behind you causes your brain to start to fire more orderly. We've measured this thousands of times. And as if you were just an awareness in that blackness, I'm going to say to you, now it's time to become nobody, no one, no thing, no where, and no time. And take your attention off of everything known and to invest it into the unknown. And like investing into a bank account, the longer you linger in the unknown, the more you create possibilities in your life. And if you find your mind returning to your body, to your pain, to your drives, to your emotions, to your habits, to thinking about certain people or objects or places or things in your known predictable reality, to thinking about the familiar past or the eventual future, simply become aware that your attention is on the known, investing back into this three-dimensional reality. Stop, relax, return back to the present moment, and unfold back into possibility, into the blackness. Now that blackness, I know some of you are thinking, what is this? So then, the quantum field is an invisible field of energy and information that exists beyond this space and time. There's no bodies there, there's no people there, there's no objects, there's no things, there's no places, there isn't even any time. So then think about this. Take away all the bodies, all the people, all the objects, all the things, all the places in this universe. Take away the Earth, the moon, all the planets, the moons on those planets. Take away the sun, that means the light from the sun goes. Take away all the stars, there goes all the light from the stars. Take away all the galaxies, take away everything physical or material in this known universe. The only thing you're left with is space, infinite blackness, a vacuum. But just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Now, as you broaden your awareness into this blackness, I want you to understand that you are connecting to frequency and to energy. And when you do this properly and you sense nothing but space, and you learn how to change your brain waves into alpha and theta and more coherent patterns, you start to suppress activity in the memory bank of the neocortex, the autobiographical self. Remember, this is your connection to everything known or you've experienced in your three-dimensional reality. And as you suppress neurological activity in your thinking brain, our research shows that your awareness or energy moves right into the brain underneath your thinking brain, called the limbic brain, the seat of your autonomic nervous system. Now you are learning how to be conscious in your subconscious mind. Now delta brainwaves is deep sleep. That's when your body's in a restorative state. So we want to learn how to regulate your brain waves and slow them down so you can linger in that place where you're half awake and half asleep and learn how to rewrite programs. So then, practicing this over time. If you find your mind going to somewhere or to some place and you get frustrated, you're going to drive your brain into beta brainwave patterns. Just become aware that you're doing that. Stop, return back to the present moment, unfold back into that blackness or sense that blackness. You may start thinking about how long the music's going to go or what you're going to do when the meditation's over. Become aware that you're doing that. That's a victory. Disinvest your attention and energy out of that known future and bring it back to the present moment and unfold back into that blackness. That's a victory. If you start getting frustrated or impatient and you start thinking about events in your life that created that, you're siphoning energy out of the present moment into the past. Just become aware that that's a habit, an unconscious habit that you do all the time. Simply return back to the present moment. And if you keep practicing this, just like training an animal, sooner or later your body's going to surrender to a new mind. And when it does, there's a liberation of energy. We have measured this. You are going to go from particle to wave, from matter to energy, and your body is freed from the chains of the familiar past and the predictable future, and it learns how to relax into the sweet spot of the generous present moment, the unknown. That is the perfect place to create from. And once we get there, by the end of this particular series, we're going to teach you how to create from the field, from that unified field, instead of from matter. And when you do that properly, you no longer have to play by the rules of three-dimensional reality. You no longer have to go anywhere and get it, Because when there's a vibrational match between your energy and some possibility in the quantum field, and you're creating from the field instead of from matter, now you are the vortex. Now you will begin to draw the experience to you. Why? Because you're connected to the source where everything physical exists. And so learning how to do that now you no longer have to wait 30 years to go get it. You will begin to create experiences equal to a vibrational match. And when this process starts, it gets to be fun, whether you're working on abundance, whether you're working on health, whether you're working on a mystical experience, it's the same exact formula. But if it requires a clear intention, coherent brain, and an elevated emotion, a coherent heart, let's talk about in the next episode how to create heart coherence. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy the next meditation. Eyes closed. Take a breath. And relax. Your body feel your body and relax it. Slow it down. And relax. Into nothing. And one slow, steady breath through your nose, all the way to the top, and hold it, and let it build, and exhale. Relax and feel. And inhale through your nose to the top and hold it. and exhale. And relax. More. And inhale through your nose to the end, and hold it. Let it build. And exhale. And relax. Your body. And feel. And become aware of the infinite black space. Way out. Beyond you. How deep does the blackness go? Sense it. Stay aware of it. Stay connected to it. The infinite space. Beyond you. Become aware there's endless space. Sense it. Stay aware of it. Feel your connection to it. The blackness. More. Stay there. Become aware. There's endless space. Behind you. Sense it. Feel your connection to it. Become more aware of it. The blackness. It's all around you. Sense it. The blackness. Sense more of it. And less of you. And dissolve your identity into an endless sea. Blackness. And lose yourself into nothing. It's all around you. Tune in to the blackness. Feel it. Notice it. Stay aware of it. Stay connected to it. Feel the blackness. Feel more of it. Less of you. And relax into nothing. Pay more attention to it. Less attention to you. And tune in to the blackness and feel. And now, slowly bring your awareness back to your body, to your environment, and to this time. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the material world. In this space and time. Hi everybody, Dr. Joe here. Thank you for making time for your next lesson. In the last episode, we talked extensively about a formula to create brain coherence. And I just want to review it for you so you can hear it again. Remember, the hormones of stress, the arousal of those chemicals causes us to draw from this invisible field of energy, this vital life force surrounding our body, and turn it into chemistry, and the field around our body shrinks, and we feel more separate from our connection to the field. We feel more like matter, less like energy. By the same means, the hormones of stress cause an arousal in the brain to go into a very high beta brainwave pattern. Now, for the short term, that's great. But when you're stuck in that state and you're trying to control and predict everything in your life, shifting your attention to all of those different elements in your environment, to your body, and to time, activates those different neurological networks quickly. And the habituation of shifting your attention like that causes the brain to become a house divided against itself. Now the brain is incoherent. Now the brain is functioning out of order. And this state becomes a habituation for many people. By the same means, the hormones of stress causes our senses to become heightened, and we become materialists, and we narrow our focus on the cause, on our outer environment. Now, quantum physics says reality is both particle and wave, matter and energy. And so many people get so hooked into only focusing on the material world. So when it comes time to create and you're living by the hormones of stress, it makes sense then if your senses are heightened, if you don't see it, if you can't smell it, if you can't hear it, you can't taste it, you can't feel it, you can't experience it in this three-dimensional reality, it doesn't exist. And by the same means, people who are dependent on the hormones of stress for an arousal, and they need the problems and conditions in their life because that makes them feel something, well, it makes total sense then if you're living in that state, you're not going to want to create. It's not a time to create. It's time to run, fight, and hide. So then how much of your waking day do you put your attention on matter? And how much of your waking day do you put your attention on energy? How much do you focus on the particle in quantum physics? And how much do you focus on the wave of possibility? Now, think about this. In the quantum model of reality, the scientists that first started studying quantum physics, Einstein and Planck, they noticed that when they were studying the behaviors of electrons, they thought that the behavior of an electron, when they disturbed it with energy, just like an apple falling from a tree, the small body, the apple, would fall towards a larger body, the Earth, towards the center of the Earth, that it would fall in a very predictable and smooth and continuous fashion. And all you have to do is know the distance and the speed, and you can determine the time it's going to get there. So that world of Newtonian classical physics is all about the predictable. But when they disturbed the electron didn't fall in a smooth, continuous fashion towards the nucleus of the atom. It behaved differently. It appeared and then disappeared, then appeared and disappeared. And all of a sudden, the subatomic world of very tiny things didn't behave like the very large world of objects and things. So then when they started to measure the electron, it was very interesting because the electron went from a cloud, a wave function of possibility, and it collapsed when they looked for it to measure it into a particle. In other words, that energy, that wave function of possibility collapsed into a particle called collapsing the wave function. When they stopped observing it, when they stopped looking for it, it moved back into energy and possibility. So all of a sudden they realized that subjective mind had an effect on the objective world, that mind and matter were so connected, so combined, that it was impossible to separate the two. And in every quantum physics experiment, you need an observer present, which means mind has to be considered. Now, it only works for the very tiny and not for the very large. Subatomic world is influenced by mind, but what about real-life events that we experience in our outer world? Well, people will say to me, well, the quantum model of reality works for the very tiny and not for the very large, the observer effect for the tiny but not the large. And I always say maybe we're just poor observers. Maybe instead of creating from matter, if we create from the field, we could exert greater effects. So then when you broaden your focus and you sense nothing but frequency or energy, I'm asking you to put more of your attention on energy and frequency, because most people do not put any attention on energy and frequency. They're materialists. They only pay attention to the material world. And the act of broadening your focus and sensing nothing but space is causing you to connect to that unifying field, that invisible field of coherent and organized energy that connects everything physical and material. And it begins to entrain your nervous system into more order, suppressing functions in the neocortex. And all of a sudden, you begin to get beyond your conscious mind, beyond your analytical mind. And now you're in the operating system where true change can take place. And we have thousands of measurements of people who have even never meditated before by applying this principle of open focus, by sensing nothing but space, being in that vacuum without a name, without a profession, without a culture, without a diet, without a disease, without a past, without a body, without a cell phone, without an identity, lingering there as an awareness and getting comfortable lingering in the unknown is that place we want to create from. So then keep practicing it. Keep taking your attention off your body. Keep taking your attention off the people in your life, the things you own, the objects you're connected with, the places you know, and truly time itself. And when you do that properly, you become pure consciousness, and you're disinvesting all of your attention and energy out of this three-dimensional reality, out of this known and into the unknown. And that blackness, that vacuum, is the unknown. And when you're no longer thinking about all of those elements, your body, your environment, and time, just like in the quantum physics experiment, when they took their attention off the electron and it turned back into possibility, when you disconnect from everything known in your world, in your life is going to turn into possibility. And all I want you to do is keep investing your attention into that blackness, into that unknown. I want you to keep surrendering any aspect of your limited self to join your greater self. To lose yourself in nothing to become everything. To become more of it and less of you. To pay more attention to it and less attention to you. And you will hear me say at certain times, and become the blackness, become that vacuum. I'm asking you to forget that you're your body. You can't do that if you're your body. You can only do that as consciousness. And when you become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time, this is the moment you become pure consciousness. This is the moment you walk through the door to the quantum field. And that eye of the needle that you have to pass through, you can't take anything physical or material with you. You can only go as pure consciousness. And I have labored for years to teach people how to get to this place. I have labored for years to teach them on how to get beyond themselves and get beyond their identity, their personality, the same thoughts, the same behaviors, the same emotions, and to linger as an awareness in this field. And that point then is the beginning. That is the first process of creating that type of brain coherence. Now, what about the heart? Let's talk about what happens when you live by the hormones of stress, and the arousal of those chemicals is causing your heart to beat quicker, and it's sending blood to your extremities to prepare it to run, to fight, or to hide. The body is getting prepared for some emergency. It shuts down the digestive juices. It's not a time to digest right now. It's not a time to eat a meal. It's time for survival. It's time for emergency. And people spend 70% of the time living in the state when their heart starts to race and they're not running because they're sitting in traffic. They can't fight because they're sitting in traffic, and they can't hide. The rush of these chemicals causing the heart to beat against the constricted blood flow, the heart starts to beat very incoherently. And now energy, when we're under stress, leaves the brain and goes to the lower centers of the body. And when we're living by the hormones of stress and the heart is pumping against a closed system, the resistance against that closed system causes the heart to beat incoherently, and energy leaves the heart. Now, this is when we stop trusting. This is when we stop loving. This is when we stop caring, because survival says you got to take care of you first, and people become very selfish. So then if energy leaves the heart, and there's no energy for the creative process, then we got to get energy back in the heart. And when the heart is beating incoherently like this, and there's no resilience in the heart, people all of a sudden close their heart down, because they're going to say, in survival, if you open your heart, if you're vulnerable, if you're sitting still and you're creating, it goes against the survival gene. In other words, the more people are conditioned or dependent on the hormones of stress to make them feel alive, the less likely they'll want to create. Now think of your heart as your creative center. Think of your heart as the union of polarity, the union of duality, the union of opposites. This place right here is where wholeness begins. This is the door to the more divine aspects of ourselves. So then, when we practice opening our hearts, it goes against a lot of conditioning, because most people have been bruised when they open their heart. They were taken advantage of. They were manipulated in some way, and they don't want to have that experience again. But just think of your heart as the creative center. And when energy makes it into the heart, once energy can move into this heart and you can place your attention on it, where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And out of the infinite things you could put your attention on, I'm going to ask you to put your attention right here. And once you place your attention in your heart, if you learn how to activate this heart by creating elevated emotions and regulating your breath, once energy makes it here, our research is so elegant and so beautiful. Once energy makes it to the heart, and the heart starts beating more orderly and more coherent, and people can trade limited emotions, survival emotions, for elevated emotions, and learn how to practice opening this creative center. Once energy makes it here, you'll see a dramatic change in energy to the brain. In other words, the heart beats in a rhythmic fashion. The beating of that rhythmic heart in a very specific frequency causes energy to move directly back into the heart. Now there's energy in the brain to create with. There's energy to begin to forecast new possibilities. And the brain waves naturally move out of that beta state into a more alpha, more creative state. We've seen this thousands of times. So heart coherence acts as an amplifier to create brain coherence, to put more energy in the brain. Now there's energy to create. By the same means, when the heart starts beating coherently and orderly, like pounding a drum or like dropping pebbles in a still lake, pebble after pebble after pebble, the heart begins to emit a very broad magnetic field. Now, the research shows that when the heart is coherent, that magnetic field can be up to 3 meters wide. Now, we're more wave and less particle. We're more energy and less matter. And now we start feeling connected to something greater, connected to everyone, to everybody, to everything, to every place, to every time. We start feeling like we're connected to something greater. When the heart begins to beat coherently and that energetic magnetic field begins to emanate from the heart, that energy is frequency. And frequency now can carry information. And now imagine now, coherent heart producing this broadened magnetic field. I always say the thought is the electrical charge in the quantum field, coherent brain. The feeling is the magnetic charge in the quantum field, coherent heart. And now you have a Wi-Fi signal. Now you have a broadened field around your body. And the energy, when the heart is activated, that frequency of coherence can carry the thought of your wealth. It can carry the thought of your health. It could carry the thought of your new career, your new life. The frequency of suffering cannot carry the thought of your health or your wealth. It carries a different set of thoughts. So once energy makes it to the heart, it influences energy to the brain. It creates more coherent alpha brainwave patterns. We've measured this thousands of times. You're in a more creative state. By the same means now, the field around your body is beginning to broaden. Your heart is connecting you to the quantum field a little bit more. Once that field is broadened and it's coherent, you can lay an intention or a thought on that frequency. And now you are broadcasting a whole new electromagnetic signature into the field. And whatever you broadcast into the field is your experiment with destiny. And so we practice heart coherence. And in the next episode, I'm going to talk to you about the process of how to do it. And we've partnered with HeartMath Institute for many, many years. And our research shows, without a doubt, that people can sustain heart coherence, not just for 5 minutes. We have several people in our community that could regulate heart coherence for up to an hour at a time. Now it's a skill for them. What's the significance of that? Well, if you've just combined a clear intention, coherent brain, with an elevated emotion, coherent heart, and now you are changing your energy and broadcasting a whole new electromagnetic signature into the field, that whatever you broadcast into the field is your experiment with destiny. You just can't do it during your meditation, and then when your meditation is over, get up and start judging your coworkers or getting angry in traffic. I would say to you then, the moment you return back to those old familiar emotions, you just disconnected from the energy of your future, and now you're back to the energy of your past. Don't expect anything to change in your life, because I've been doing this for long enough to tell you that nobody changes until they change their energy, and when they change their energy, they change their lives. So then, when a person then can sustain that state for an extended period of time, throughout the course of their day, they will feel connected to the energy of their future. And if you ask them, why are you frustrated or angry, or why are you suffering again, and they say to you, it's because of that person or that circumstance, then we would say to them, oh my goodness, you're back to the unconscious program of being a victim in your life, believing something in your outer world is controlling your feelings and thoughts. When people learn how to self-regulate, when they learn how to practice heart coherence, and they can practice it with their eyes closed at first, the real game is to take it out for a test drive and be able to do it with your eyes open and stay in your heart your entire day. And if you can maintain that energy your entire day, independent of the conditions in your environment, independent of the cravings or the habituations of your body, and independent of time, and your energy is synchronized to a new future, then it makes sense that you should see synchronicities in your lives. And the synchronicities should be those events that are telling you to keep doing the work, keep practicing it. And the more you refine your heart coherence and your brain coherence, the more you're refining that signal. It makes sense then that incoherence in the brain An incoherence in the heart means you are separate from the field. You're not connected to it. You have no Wi-Fi signal. You're separate from possibilities. And now this is where we force outcomes, we control outcomes, we manipulate outcomes because we're matter trying to change matter. So then in the next episode, I want to talk to you about the process of creating heart coherence, and then so that we can teach you how to synchronize your energy to possibilities in your future and put it all together. I hope you enjoy. Eyes closed. Take a breath. And relax. Your body feel your body and relax it. Slow it down. And relax. Into nothing. And one slow, steady breath through your nose, all the way to the top, and hold it, and let it build, and exhale. Relax and feel. And inhale through your nose to the top and hold it. And exhale. And relax. More. to the end and hold it. Let it build. And exhale. And relax your body. And feel. Become aware of the infinite black space way out beyond you. How deep does the blackness go? Sense it. Stay aware of it. Stay connected to it. The infinite space. Beyond you. Become aware there's endless space on both sides of you. In the blackness, sense it.
Stay aware of it. Feel your connection to it. The blackness. More. Stay there. Become aware. There's endless space. Behind you. Sense it. Feel your connection to it. Become more aware of it. The blackness. It's all around you. Sense it. The blackness. Sense more of it. And less of you. And dissolve your identity into an endless sea. Blackness. And lose yourself into nothing. It's all around you. Tune in to the blackness. Feel it. Notice it. Stay aware of it. Stay connected to it. Feel the blackness. Feel more of it. Less of you. And relax into nothing. More. Pay more attention to it. Less attention to you. And tune in to the blackness and feel. Now, slowly bring your awareness back to your body, to your environment, and to this time. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the material world. In this space and time.